Okay, everyone, welcome to Gateway API meeting for February 20th, 2023. Although, as always, it's the 21st for me. Let's get started. Shane, do you want to run through your couple of items? Awesome. Sorry,
Yep.
I forgot to mention the usual code of conduct disclaimer. Be nice to each other, everybody. This is subject to the usual Kubernetes code of conducts. Go, Shane.
Roger that. So I'll be basically just saying this at every meeting until then, but recently we decided we wanted to try and do an earlier morning, or rather an earlier time meeting, one that would be a bit more friendly to EU time zones, Brazil, East Coast, that sort of thing. So March 6th is the selected date. That one will be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. It's on your calendar already if you're using the SIG networking calendar. I just wanted to remind people. And then another general call out from the greater Kubernetes community, if you are using any images that were on the previous k8s.gcr.io, there is a big movement right now to get everybody off of those as it's being deprecated and moved to registry.k8s.io. K8s.io. So if you're using it in integration tests, anything like that, please go through and replace the gcr.io with the k8s.io registry. It is identical, but the old one will be shutting down eventually. That's it for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had a couple of reminders and a couple of things that have come up for me this week, as I have got back up to speed after sort of traveling for a few weeks. The first one is this discussion about allowing TLS to route using ALPN negotiation. Yeah, so I think it would be nice to. This feels like a nice to have to me, but yeah, I'd be interested to have more people comment on here. It's been me and David and John Howard so far talking about it, but I'd definitely like to get some other people to have a think about it.
Yeah, I read this one. I thought it was kind of interesting. I mean, as long as I think it sounds like it's going to be something that ends up in extended, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Try it out for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be, yeah. I mean, TLS route is currently still alpha, but even if it moves to beta, this would be experimental and extended field.
Roger that.
Does anyone else have any questions about this before we move on?
Yeah, I started the conversation.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
Yeah, I was just waiting for more feedback. There was like one concern around, how many proxies actually support it, but
yeah, I think
we're not too worried about that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think with if you say you've tried it with Nginx and Envoy, and traffic as well supports it, that covers a lot of implementations.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have something to show you for that in a minute, but yeah, that seems pretty good. That seems certainly good enough to me to put it in extended. That's it's a really cool idea, I think. So yeah, I definitely will keep an eye on this one, David, and make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks. I do think that if we can just get I'd just like a few more people to sort of give us some feedback here before I tell you to go and do a GEP, because doing a GEP is when you get all the feedback, if you haven't. But I'll be honest, I think this is pretty close to hey, kick off a GEP and let's see what happens when we actually propose doing this for reals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Cool. I'll give a small count for anyone else to have anything to say here. Okay. We'll leave that one alone. If you the discussion's there though, if you want to add something to it later. Okay. Another one from me. This one came up while I was away. I did keep a bit of an eye on it. Look, I think, as one of the primary culprits responsible for policy attachment, I think that a lot of this feedback is very fair. I think that policy attachment is not very usable without us solving the way to get feedback about what's attached where. And we definitely need some patterns and some guidelines about how to do that. I think that the concern that Keith has here about CRD proliferation is 100% true, but I don't think there's any better way around that. I put a big comment on here further down. Yeah, like I really only see three things. Like, we either add full-fledged fields or we add more CRDs. Like there's no, and adding full-fledged fields for this kind of sucks because you'll be kind of building stuff that's very optional into the API. That's why we wanted to do extra CRDs to start with. I think that the thing we need to keep in mind here is that we want to try and work towards having the CRDs be as standardized as possible. And so that's why I've moved on to the next item in the agenda about timeouts. Before I get on to talking about timeouts, Arco, I see you're here. You raised a great issue with those things. But before we get on to talk about that, I'd like if everyone could have a look at this PR. Well, can I get a few more reviews on this PR, please? Shane, you've already done yours. It'd be good to get a couple more people's comments or feedback on this PR. The idea here is to just update the language around policy attachment. No, I gotta fix the. To add the fact that policy attachments are meta resources, by which a meta resource is a resource that changes or modifies the functionality of another resource. All policy attachments are meta resources. Not all meta resources are policy attachment. Reference grant is another meta resource that changes the functionality of the targeted resource. The important part about policy attachment is it's about this having config flowing across the hierarchy. And that's how I think of it anyway. So that's what this update is about clarifying the language there. So if we could get some more feedback on this one, that I would very much appreciate it. That would be very useful for us talking further about policy attachment. That's most of what I had to say about this policy attachment thing. Does anyone else want to say anything before we move on to the specific example of timeouts? Thanks, Shane. That's a thumbs up from Shane for the recording. Okay, cool. We'll leave that one alone for now. I have I've done a first cut of a timeouts gap. I'm going to go straight to the deploy preview. This was done like at 11 p.m. last night my time, so there's some more stuff I'm going to add today. Arco, I saw your great issue about what you propose we should probably hit. So I think I'm definitely going to address that in here. But the most important part about this was that I did a survey of all of the current listed implementations and what data plane they use. I'll do some summary numbers and stuff like that as well in terms of what data plane they use. It is important to note here that I'm talking about the layer 7 stuff and HTTP route, not more general timeouts. I think that the layer 4 stuff is interesting, but we'll have there are interesting places where you can put timeouts there. So anyway, and then the most important thing is here, I've made these flow diagrams. I'm just gonna this bit. Yep. So this is the basic flow diagram I made. That's literally like, hey, here's what happens when you create a client connection. Proxy sends the connection to the upstream and then gets a response. Pretty basic stuff. But that gave me then a place to put where all the timeouts are. So this is the Envoy timeouts diagram with the 14 available timeouts that Envoy allows you to configure. Envoy has the bigger number of timeouts, but the thing that I was hoping to do is to sort of take those timeouts and sort of wash them against the Nginx ones and the HA proxy ones and the traffic ones. And this way we have some better data on what timeouts are actually available and what timeouts we can, like it's possible for us to configure like a standards, or sort of, as John said on that policy thing, a more vague sort of description of what a timeout should be. So yeah, I've talked a lot. Does anyone else have anything to say about timeouts?
This
Seems
looks
really
great, Nick. Thanks for drawing it all out. Yeah.
Seems good. Yeah, I have, I had the day off today. I'm here for the meeting, but I wasn't at work today, so I haven't read through this yet, but I will tomorrow.
Yeah, no problems. There's quite a bit to look through in terms of these diagrams. I must admit that part of the point was for me to say to people, you know how I told you this was, harder than you might think. These diagrams sort of make it a little bit more clear, I think, that it's there's more to timeouts than just a request timeout. And all of these are there for a reason. Like people don't add stuff to their programs for no reason. So yeah, it's harder than it might seem. Sorry, Arco, you go.
Yeah, Nick. So I think I in the issue, I'm forgetting the number. I think I described 4 kinds of timeouts. There are 2 at the HTTP level. One is called a request timeout. So
Yep.
the time it takes for a request to complete. So I think each proxy calls it something different based on, right? So I think that could be a high level term. Another one is idle timeout. So that's between consecutive requests. And I think I think layer 4 timeouts are important because they affect layer 7. So something like a connect timeout. So how much time do you wait for to sort of set up a connection with an upstream? And the other part, I think this is an open question, is do keep alives fit into this model, or do keep alives as in live at a top level, a different sort of noun?
Yeah. So I think, again, keep alives become more complicated because you've got both layer 4 keep alives and layer 7 keep alives, and they are important, more or less important, depending on whether you've also done stuff to upgrade your connection to a long running one, like a gRPC one or a WebSockets one. So yeah, I think there's definitely a few things there. I think I agree that it's likely that some sort of request timeout will be pretty reasonable, and some sort of idle timeout and some sort of connect timeout. Most things support something that performs those functions to some extent. Yeah, I think John said it, that his point is fair, that as long as there's something that's roughly analogous to it, you're probably okay for it not to be exactly the same. I do think it'll make it complicated if we want to add conformance for timeouts, if they don't work pretty closely to the same. But hopefully we can make the definitions work. But yeah, the point here is just to start off on the data gathering, to sort of say, hey, like, if we do a request timeout and a connect timeout, then the top 3 or 4 data plane implementations can do something like it, and it's possible. And so that's the point of what I wanted to start here. So I will take the stuff that you put in that issue, Arco. Thanks again for that, and update this with sort of some suggestions that about things that we can handle, and then leave this for you all to have a bit of a read of. Awesome. Yeah, I know it's holiday, so I don't want to hold you all up. That is the end of all the stuff I had on the agenda. So we got a bit of time left. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask, or any other things you want to talk about? If not, then we'll probably call the meeting early.
Hi there. One question.
Yep.
I'm Thomas. Nice to meet you. First time I joined. Just want to know if I want to talk about something, I can add something to the
Yes,
agenda.
absolutely.
For example.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, you feel free to add the agenda anytime. That is a general rule for everybody. The agenda is open. You can add things to talk about now or next week. Cool. Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
No problem.
Yep, and next week we'll probably be a little more active. Lots of people off today.
Yeah, yeah. We are a slightly US centric group, so when there's US
Yeah, I'm
holiday,
in Barcelona, so it's pretty late here.
yeah, oh yeah, wow, that's pretty rough. Hopefully, the meetings that Shane is talking about hosting for you all should be a bit helpful. So let's not keep you, but yeah, like if you do have a minute to talk about what sort of stuff you're looking at doing with Gateway API, I'd be super interested. But if you want to do that at a time that's
Oh,
better
sure.
for
I
you,
can talk
Yeah.
briefly. Yeah, sure. Like, so I'm involved. I'm from Red Hat. We're doing projects using policy attachments. So when it came up, I still have to read. I didn't know that issue about the complexity of policy attachment existed. I guess I could have
Yep.
written it myself maybe, but so we're doing rate limiting and auth, and we're trying to make sense of of policy attachment. And there's this of course, for example, Envoy gateway going the filter route, and we're just wondering, because we really like the policy attachment thinking of different roles and overrides and defaults, and the whole thinking behind it makes a lot of sense to us. But in the details, there are problems, and yeah, we have the fear like that. Some things are easier to do through filters, and so like it's like discussing that topic, the topic of policy attachments, and how to make more sense of it and how to make it better.
So yeah, I think to summarize the comment that I put on that discussion, policy attachment is complex and it's unfinished. Like it's the skeleton of an idea, not a fully spec'd idea. The idea here was to sort of have us say, yeah, this is a thing that we'd like to be able to do. The defaults and the overrides part, in my mind, was a large part of like the reason why you would do it this way. And I think Arco, you and the folks who are actually active on Envoy Gateway, unlike me, did a great job there of sort of making the call that for the sorts of things that you're working on, that filters were better. One of the updates that I did in the PR in the 1565, this one, that I mentioned, is to actually change the language in the as it stands today policy attachment document. It says you can't do policy over custom filters. I think that was a mistake. Although like an extension filter, I think that the complexity there is definitely around knowing what config is available, but that is a larger problem. I think that it makes sense to me that if you are going to have custom filters, that it would be nice to be able to default those custom filters, and that probably something that looks like policy attachment is close to being the right way to do that. So yeah, that's part of what I wanted to update here, is that I have changed the wording. I have changed the wording.
I'll read up. Yeah.
Yeah. I've changed the wording to say like, hey, you can do it's okay to do custom filters with custom policy attachment objects to sort of set defaults for those filters. Because I think the biggest downside of using a extension ref custom filter is that without something like policy attachment, you have to specify that in every place that you want it to apply. And that kind of sucks that, for a rate limit, for example, you have to specify the rate limit on every single service that you want to be rate limited. You can't just say all these services are rate limited in the same way. So yeah,
right. But what you
so,
do have with the filter is, of course, if you have like, you can have each rule can have its filter in an HTTP route, for example, and with the policy you attach it to the object, so you have the route, and that's it. Like, so you'd have to repeat, for example, all the rules if you want to have that specificity in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's what part of what I was aiming for here was to be able to say, hey, you have the specificity if you want it, but if you don't want it, you can also default things easily for a given value of easy. I think the massive open big problem of all of this is how, as a user, how do you see what policy is in effect on your object? This is a very unsolved problem. Yes. So yeah, I 100% acknowledge that this is a big unsolved problem. It's actually surprisingly difficult because it's really easy to create fan out, fan in problems for the API server. If you're not careful about what happens when one of your resources gets updated, and if that generates 20 other object updates because a policy has fallen in or out of scope, then that's not great. Yeah. And so it's
Okay,
really
cool.
important. Yeah. So anyway, have a read of that, Thomas. And please, feel free to come back to maybe the March 6th meeting might be a good one for you. But
Yes,
yeah,
I will do that.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone else to get involved on this one. This is going to be a sort of a long-ranging, probably a long-running and long-ranging, an important change that will impact a lot of stuff in the future. So, yeah, I definitely encourage people to post your thoughts on there. Like I said, like I would label myself as sort of like Rob and I jointly together, but sort of I did a lot of the stuff for policies for defaults and overrides. And so like, point the finger at, I'm happy for people to point the finger at me that this is not finished. And I agree it needs to be finished now that we're actually getting to the point where we're trying to use it. And so, yeah, like I really want as many people to be involved as possible so that it can not just be me writing this down and doing things my way.
Cool, that's good. So I joined at the right moment.
Yes, you did. Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, does anyone else have anything they would like to add or ask questions about? Remember, it is an open agenda. You don't even need to put the item on the agenda. If you just want to ask a question now, knock yourself out. But otherwise, I will give everyone their holidays or evenings back. I'm going to give you a hand countdown. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. We will see you all next week. Remember about the March 6th being at the different times. That probably means I won't be able to make it because that puts it at 2 o'clock in the morning my time, I think. I will see you all around. Please feel free to ask questions here or on Slack. Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.